Hello, friends. I dedicate this discussion to the happiness of all sentient beings and the causes of their happiness, the absence of their suffering, and their endless suffering, the causes of the absence of their endless suffering. So, okay, caterpillar, upside down, the profile of it, with those legs coming up, could be thought of geometrically as an analogy for life, where life air shines. How do we say that in English? Life shows itself or comes in some manifestation sort of out of obviously a collective situation with oxygen and vitamins and minerals and carbohydrates and fats and proteins. And we see life sort of come out of that, general set of conditions and fade back. So that's a nice context to think about life. Things, because we are born and we die, and this is humans, right? But then there's also all those bacteria on our body, in our bodies. Those are the prokaryotes, and then all the eukaryotes, all the single-celled animal, and okay, so I wanted to kind of get at this endless complexity idea. So there is endless complexity, actually, in all things. And all things are alive. So now we have to say, what is life? This is an important point. So if you wanted to know what is alive, what's not alive, you'd be stuck. Because if you look at something like replication and reproduction as signs of life, then you see that the sun, for example, reproduces and replicates in different ways. Maybe not with genes, but in other ways, right? So we're looking, if you want to get into the meaning of life, and well, not, let's get to that later, but the essence of our reality. So we are, this discussion and everything that we will ever think about and all relates only to human consciousness. So that's a Begrenzung, as they say in Deutsch, means that it's a finite sort of a barrier, like Trump's wall, right? It's a barrier which they have around monasteries and they have around universities, walls. It's very much of a liberal thing as well. So that's all a whole nother discussion. But at any rate, what I wanted to talk about is, so again, life, if we just go with that term, even though everything's alive, if we just allow that's human ignorance, the desire to create these these boundaries, and this is the whole history of science. They create these illusions of boundaries, that the Earth is the center of all things, or that the humans are the only intelligent life, or something like this. So, or that the universe had a beginning and an end. Oh my God, right? It's very naive. So if we leave behind some of that human ignorance, well, okay, we'll do that next. But first, to go with that human ignorance, in the sense of life, to say that this is alive, this is dead, that kind of duality, which is really, it's almost completely wrong. Okay, let's stop there. So when we say something is almost completely wrong, and that everything's infinitely complex, that, okay, maybe it's not completely wrong, because you could say, look, this animal's alive, this animal's dead. The dead one's laying down, the living one's walking. Why do I say that's completely wrong? Because if there's an infinite amount of additional information, an infinite amount of complexity, then the alive-dead duality, which is absolute, as though there was no additional complexity there, becomes infinitely incorrect. So is that completely incorrect? Maybe not. But is it almost completely incorrect? Yes. Okay. So why would dead and alive be infinitely incorrect? Or almost, infinitely incorrect, or almost completely incorrect? Because when you were born from your mother's womb. and there you received oxygen through the umbilical cord. And now you're still needing the oxygen, and you're receiving it from plants, photosynthesis, and so on and so forth. So those are now your umbilical cord. So your umbilical cord has changed, but you still need to breathe through that thing. Did you become independent? Absolutely, again, almost absolutely not. But yes, maybe in some infinitely trite and small way, yes, you became independent and had a life, you could say, a life, is infinitely incorrect, it's infinitely naive, but yes, there is some independent existence there, transient and so on. So what is stable? What is not infinitely ignorant? What is somehow stable and more, let's say, infinitely intelligent? How about that for a positive idea? Well, what's infinitely intelligent and infinitely stable is interdependence. So that is that caterpillar on its back. It would be that independence is the body of it. Now, the little legs that you see on top, where life, individual life, comes out, that is also reality. It just comes out in sort of, it comes in the illusion of individuality. Erscheint, what was that word again? Oh, that's out Deutsch. So in English, like, we can see it. It comes. Is this a life? As someone is born and dies, as a sort of an illusion of independence, because actually we know, if you look at the organism, what we call cells, which is again a totally ignorant idea, because it is not atomic. The cell wall is made out of things too that are very much part of its mechanical function. You know what I'm saying? So that would be these molecules, right, of whatever, proteins and of a million things, an infinite number of things, with an infinite number of bonds, not just 5 or 6 types of bonds, right, between atoms, but an infinite number of bonds with an infinite number of particles. Not just with electrons. We love that, right? Oh, these electrons spinning around the neutron, proton, in the nucleus. No, wrong. Infinite number of, and I'm not an expert. It's not that I know what those infinite number of things are, which would be infinite. You couldn't know it, but it's a trend. You can see in the history of science, we consistently create a boundary, and that this is everything. I think at the beginning of the last century, a lot of the leading physicists thought that they were finishing with physics. We were going to finish the subject because we know it all. But then there was more. But that déjà vu, yes, again and again, there are more things. So I guess really the main motivation here, I wanted to share my love for you, warm-heartedness about that caterpillar on its back as sort of in a geometric analogy for the way that your life and all these different lives and things like crystals and stars and asteroids and any sort of anything sort of comes into existence and goes out of existence, and that hopefully will remind you and remind me of that underlying context for Ershining, coming out into, and this illusion of disappearing, and that we can, I hope that your consciousness, my consciousness, that we can slowly mature, not be ignorant, be intelligent, and slowly get a feeling for our lives. And that would be something that not only was born and died, but something that relates to its causes and its components. Causes being infinite number of causes, not just your mother, her egg, your father, the sperm, the genes, not just the infinite number of human lives, not infinite, the many, many human lives before that, not just the dinosaurs and all of the fish and so on, and the bacteria, and where that came from in that chain, but also currently, in present time, the oxygen I'm breathing is still an umbilical cord to those plants and so on that are creating that oxygen, and that's coming from carbon dioxide and all this mess of animals, and of course then there's asteroids that eliminate a lot of different species, and then but this whole process of life. Okay, I'm almost out here, but so I'll end it there, and I just want to say I wish you great luck and warmth in your understanding of your own consciousness and how it relates and with umbilical cords to other causes in the current moment. You are not alone, how you're always in a very interdependent existence. Goodbye.